Live from Keene, New Hampshire, the most watched TV news show in Keene, the Keene Weekly News with Mark Edgington. Coverage of local and national events starts now.
I'm Mark Edgington, and you're watching the Keene Weekly News. Today is May the 4th, 2007, and this is the second episode ever of the Keene Weekly News. And already, we're getting superlative reviews from our audience out there. There's a local Keene blog, and they reported worst news show ever. And that's a superlative. Now, on to the news. Last night was the big debate out in California at the Ronald Reagan National Library. Wonder how much we spent on that. Between the 10 GOP hopefuls. It was, let's see, John Gilmore, Sam Brownback, Mitt Romney, Duncan Hunter, Tommy Thompson, John McCain, Ron Paul, Rudy Giuliani, and Tom Tancredo. You know, let's see, I watched on YouTube today because I'm working at the time that it was on last night. There's just no way that I could have gotten away to watch it, although I would have been very interesting. And I felt like what we were seeing was Mitt Romney did very well. Sam Brownback didn't separate himself from the crowd enough. Nobody knows who he is. The online polls got him at, dash marks. Nobody knows. Forget Sam Brownback. John Gilmore. I liked him. He didn't poll very well afterward, though. I don't think John Gilmore is going to be the next president of the United States. I think he should get out and save people money. Mike Huckabee. Who? Duncan Hunter. Yeah, he didn't poll very well. I felt like he did pretty good, but he didn't poll very well at all. Honestly, it's interesting to see what's going to happen on the Republican side. I think the Democratic side's pretty much sewn up between these two candidates out there. One of them's going to be president, one of them's going to be vice. But Tommy Thompson, I think he showed well. I don't like anything he has to say, and he didn't poll well afterwards. Now we're getting to the big boys. John McCain. Mr. Let's prosecute this war properly. Yeah, John McCain's numbers went down. Look, Americans are sick and tired of this war. Let's get the heck out of there. I know maybe you could have done it better, Mr. McCain, but you weren't president at the time, and the guy who did it screwed it up, and you would have had just a bunch of bureaucrats trying to do to run the show also. So let's just forget this war. Let's get the heck out of there. John McCain, not going to be president of the United States of America. You can forget it. Representative Ron Paul. This is the black sheep running. Every other Republican in this whole event, he shamed them. He came through, when he talked about the war, all they could do was look at their shoes. They were so ashamed at the way the Republicans have run this country for the last 6 years. I got to say, Ron Paul's the reason that I watched the debates, and he was awesome. Ron Paul won the MSNBC poll afterwards. MSNBC put it on. Their poll's the one that counts. He also, showing up number 3 at the Drudge Report. Who heard of Ron Paul before this? I mean, he was coming from behind. I'm very proud of his showing. He increased, his public opinion poll increased 54% after last night. The American people are, by and large, conservative with their money. They want the government to be conservative with its money. That's what Ron Paul talks about. And they're sick of this war. Ron Paul said this war is a mistake. He voted against it from the beginning, and I think there's a good chance Ron Paul could be the next president of the United States. Let's see. Rudy Giuliani. His numbers are a little down after last night, but I think he showed well. Tom Tancredo. Let's get rid of him. All in all, it was interesting to see, and I think that this first debate probably parsed out the field a little bit. We're gonna get a better idea what names we're dealing with in the Republican side of things. I'll tell you what, nobody wants to carry on the Bush mantle. Everybody's separating themselves as far as they possibly can from George Bush. As well they should. Death tolls mounting. The military deaths in Iraq are now at 3,356 people who all have families. Wonder how you can be considered unpatriotic for just not wanting to see soldiers get killed. Oh, here in Keene, we're going to, the city is going to begin doing mosquito control. Does this worry anyone else? I mean, the whole idea of bureaucrats running around spraying poison wherever they want. I mean, I gotta say, this bothers me, but I don't like mosquitoes either. The Main Marlborough Winchester roundabout situation appears as though they're going to break ground on that relatively soon. Tom Eaton has given up his land, not without duress. The Keene City Council voted to steal it 9-6, and he decided that he would just go ahead and let them have it rather than spending a lot of his money on a court case. So don't think for a second that Tom Eaton wanted them to have this land. It's really just that they threatened him, and he gave it up. But it appears as though they're going to get it all set, and they offered him, what they considered a generous sum for the piece of land that they're taking from him. I'm sure he'd rather just have his land. Okay, it looks like the Ashuelot Board may ban dogs for owners failing to clean up after their pets. Now, this is sort of a tragedy of the commons situation where when somebody owns something in common, when a city or a municipality or a state or a federal government, anything is owned communally, then it's going to be taken care of poorly and it's going to cost more money to maintain. But look, if you've got a dog and it goes poo in the park, pick up after it. God, who taught you this? And the other thing I was thinking about on this is, look, it's only the people with the dogs that aren't cleaning up. It's going to be your dog that gets banned. Clean up after your dog, please. They put bags out there. They've got trash cans out there. It's easy to do. I know you don't want to have to pick it up, but if you don't want to pick up the dog poo, don't go to the park. Please, people, have some responsibility. Your mom told you to pick up your things. Pick it up. I feel the same way about cigarette smokers and tossing their butts out of their car windows. Look, you wouldn't throw a piece of paper or a wad of cotton out of your car window. Why do you think it's okay to throw a cigarette butt out? Look, it's littering. Smokers have enough trouble from legislatures and people voting against them for things. You don't need to make people dislike smoking more. If you want to be free to smoke out in public, if you want to be free to smoke anywhere but on your own land, and you'll be lucky if you get to smoke on your own land, stop throwing cigarette butts out of your car windows. God. People, clean up after yourself. Act like adults. If you want to be treated like adults, that is. I like this out of the Keene Sentinel. I like this little opinion piece. It's entitled, City Leaders Ignore Us. On Monday, April the 2nd, I called a local radio talk show that had the mayor of Keene on. I asked a few questions about the proposed roundabouts, traffic circles, or silly circles, as I call them. Well, evidently my opinions and comments and questions were not approved by the show's host or the mayor because I was cut off in the middle of a statement. It seems that our city government is about the same as our federal government, not of the people, by the people, or for the people, but a few decision makers who believe that we people are brain dead and incapable of knowing what we need or want. They must never have watched traffic or a silly circle in front of the hospital or the square on Main Street. Let's make a long story short. The other day I got in line on a line of people who were waiting to laugh out loud, and a lot when our dictators find out that Their silly circles are a major flop and are worthless in solving Keene's traffic problems. I have to agree. I think this traffic circle is probably not going to work out. But one thing I do know is that we're going to spend, they were slated to spend $4.4 million on it. Mark my words, it's not going to be $4.4 million. It's going to be twice that. Because have you ever heard of a government program that doesn't come in well over budget and late? And we're all going to spend a lot of time trying to get around the construction in the process. I don't understand why that intersection, why they can't just make lights work at that intersection. I mean, really the problem is that they don't trust us to make left-hand turns across oncoming traffic. If they would just get rid of the red left-hand turn arrows and let people cross as they would, you know, when the traffic becomes clear, then you'd knock 30 seconds off per change the light in the wait, and that would be plenty. But you know, the reason that the Civil Engineering Board didn't mention that as a possibility is they wouldn't have made $4.4 million if they mentioned that as a possibility. I wonder who they know. Anyway, I have to agree with Rodney. City officials don't really care what you think. You know, just re-elect us. That's all we care about, and we'll just do what we want. And speaking of WKBK, it's fairly bad news. Eric Scott in the afternoon has been let go, and apparently Howie Carr is back. And I think Mr. Carr runs a good radio show if you live in Boston, Massachusetts, because that's what all he seems to talk about. But I don't get to Boston very often, and you know, what they have going on in their local government doesn't really matter to me. And you know, you can make fun of Ted Kennedy as much as you like. It doesn't really matter to my life. What matters to me, what I want to see, is a radio show, or excuse me, is a radio show here in town that's about Keene, New Hampshire. And I really got to say, I'm sad to see Eric go. I thought he was a really great host. Don Imus going to be suing for $122 million. He's suing $122 million from CBS. According to his contract, he was supposed to have timely, controversial, irreverent topics. Well, he'd always been doing the same things that he had been, you know, he'd been on the air doing. CBS signed a contract with him to keep him on the air doing what he had been doing there, calling people nappy-headed hoes and things. I can't say I listened to the Don Imus show. I never really liked it, and I don't think it's very nice to make fun of people in that respect, you know, about things that they can't help. But that's sort of what he did, and that's what he was asked to do. That was what he was contracted to do. And CBS is trying to look like the good folks here by letting him go, but, you know, that's what they wanted from him. And Don Imus is going to get a big old payday out of this. And he's not going to have to work for it. He's not going to have to go to work every day and talk on the radio for 4 hours to get his $44 million that they promised him. He's just going to have to sit in his little ranch in Arizona or wherever it is and take care of his kids. He's got a bunch of kids that have medical problems that he has a farm ranch out there and helps them out. And, he really likes doing that, and his wife loves it. And so that's what they're going to be doing with their time. Got to say, good for him. Another letter out of the Keene Sentinel. I'm writing this letter to express my feelings about the Keene Police Department, along with other law enforcement officials. I do a lot of driving and see a lot of things that not only the average driver does, but what the Keene police do as well. They will pull over drivers for speeding, running a red light, rolling through a stop sign, not using their directional signal to turn, tailgating, and the list goes on. What makes them above the law to do the same exact things and get away with it? The law is the law, and just because they have a nice shiny badge and a gun doesn't mean that they get to do anything in our book. I've seen where the police should have pulled someone over, but for some reason they didn't, and then they went and pulled someone else over, like myself, for not completely stopping at a stop sign, and say that they're doing it for my safety. Well, what about my safety from them? What was it? Who is it that set them straight? Well, I guess it all depends on the day of the month and if they've met their quota or not. Now, I'm sure that there's not a quota system going on, but there's probably some kind of incentivization, to write tickets and that kind of thing. After all, the city gets the money. I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough situation with the cops trying to be fair and do all those things. And I think what we need to do is just have a few laws and enforce them stringently, rather than having a whole bunch of laws that, how can a cop even know all the laws here in town? There's just so many of them. It's possible. This is from Maine, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Maine law would make make them be the nations that first requiring all students to apply to college. So apparently the maniacs want to require every student to apply to college because college is such a good thing for them. Or at least that's what the PR is. I mean, isn't college just a business, selling an education? I mean, is it fair that the legislature requires you to at least participate in some way with these businesses? How many people have college degrees out there that they're not using for anything? That they paid, that their parents paid, that they paid tens of thousands of dollars? They weren't earning, weren't working full time and therefore making money at the same time. So you probably could guess $100,000 easy dumped into college. How many people have college degrees in French horn or communications or, I don't know, liberal arts or all kinds of things that they're just not using? I think college is great for lawyers and doctors and engineers and that kind of thing, but not everybody needs to go to college. College is overrated in a lot of ways. I mean, in a lot of ways, it just, what I'm seeing is people get degrees in coursework that they don't use and spend a lot of time getting drunk. Gas prices are hitting an all-time high. We're going to a national average of $3 a gallon, getting as high apparently as $2.93 here in Keene, getting very close. You know, when I think about the big oil companies and all the money that they're making on this, I've looked into it, and all the money that they're making is about 15 to 20 cents per gallon on regular unleaded. Now, when you start getting into the more boutique sort of mixtures, the higher octane mixtures, it gets higher. But let's use regular unleaded. That's what most people get, I think. Call it 15 cents per gallon they're making, because you can get it as low as that. Between the national, state, and local taxes that are placed on gasoline, there's 50 cents of profit for the government. And they didn't mine the oil. They didn't ship it over here from wherever it came from. They didn't do anything to deserve this 50 cents, which is over 3 times what the oil companies are making. What we really need to do is cut the taxes on gasoline and you'll see a drop, not go after the oil companies for what they're making. President Bush has approved New Hampshire's request for major disaster to be declared in the state as a result of recent flooding, heavy rain, and wind. I bet we'd probably do better if we just kept our taxes at home rather than sending them to the federal government every April 15th. It really makes me mad, They take my money and then they want to give it back like that. We got to have a disaster to get our money back? It's awful. Opponents are still hoping to block civil unions here in New Hampshire. It's likely that civil unions are going to be, that they were signed into law, and it's likely that that's going to be happening here in New Hampshire. We are the first state in the union, which I'm rather proud of, to make civil unions legal from a legislative point of view rather than from a judicial point of view. Lots of states are doing it, but judges have said that this is fair. Now, what I don't like about civil unions is I think that the government shouldn't be involved in marriages anyway. I know that the government sanctions marriages, but why? Why do they get $100 in order to say, now you can be married. I know that the reason for the proliferation of marriage licenses from the government was around the Civil War time when blacks were free. They didn't want blacks and whites getting married, so they had this license thing, and they could decide whether or not that was the case. So the marriage licenses have always been about discrimination. And, you know, that's basically what they're still about. But I can't think of any reason in the world that the government needs to be involved. I mean, are you trying to prevent people from getting into non-monogamous relationships, you know, like 3 or 4 people, polygamy, living together and doing whatever it is they do in the privacy of their own homes? Well, you can prevent them from getting married, but you can't prevent them from procreating in a big pile. Are you trying to prevent brothers and sisters from getting married? Well, guess what? Just because you refuse them a marriage certificate doesn't mean they're not having kids together, okay? I don't think the government has any business passing out marriage licenses. It's just another way for them to collect $100, and then they collect some more when you get a divorce. A marriage should be between a man and a woman, and, you know, at least 2 people, if you want to, if, you know, civil unions are the case. 2 people and their God. Not the state. I suppose it should be three people if 3 people want to get married too, but it shouldn't be. My opinion about what you're doing in the privacy of your own home doesn't matter. I love this one, the Public Service of New Hampshire. I cut this out just to show you. Why are they advertising in the paper? New Hampshire owns the power company here in New Hampshire. The state of New Hampshire owns it. And they're advertising? What are they advertising? That they give the power? We know that. I don't have a choice. I have to get my power from them. Please, stop spending thousands and thousands of dollars on newspaper advertising and lower my power bill. Here's a little editorial out of the Keene Sentinel. Income tax is the only fair way to go, says Jonathan Seaver from Hinsdale. Hinsdale's right over the border from Vermont. If Jonathan wants to have an income tax, he can just move right over the Connecticut River and he'll have one. But I can assure you that if we have an income tax here in New Hampshire, it's not going to lower what you pay, and it's not going to be more fair. Look, here's why property tax is fair. I live in a house in New Hampshire, here in Keene. I do not own that house. Somebody else does. But that somebody else has to pay property tax on it. In order for them to make money on renting that house, which is the only reason that they're going to own that house, is to rent it out and make a little bit of money, and compete in the marketplace of rentals, which is apparently softening here in New Hampshire, according to the paper, or here in Keene, according to the paper, probably because of our extraordinarily high property taxes. Anyway, the only way for him to make money is to offset all of his costs. Some of his costs are property taxes. I have to pay him everything that costs him, plus a little bit more for profit in order to live there. I pay property taxes. Renters pay property. If you live in New Hampshire, you're paying taxes. You don't need an income tax to make it more fair. Believe me, the people that are making more money are living in nicer places. They're paying more property taxes. Income tax is not going to make it more fair. It's only going to make it more invasive. Now, instead of just writing them a check, a phenomenally large check, you're going to have to write them a phenomenally large check, and you're going to have to fill out their paperwork. You're going to have to give them your name and your social security number, and then you're going to have to tell them how many hours a week you worked, and if you want to write this off, you're going to tell them why. You're going to have to show them receipts and all that other stuff. No, please don't do that. Look, the 16th Amendment to the United States Constitution outlawed slavery. It outlawed slavery. Now, what is slavery? Forcing somebody to do work for which they aren't paid, for which they don't have a choice. When I have to fill out income tax forms, I don't want to do it, but I've got to do it or I'll go to jail. That is a violation of the 16th Amendment. Now, the government loves its taxes, and there's no way that a government court is going to rule against itself, the government in this case, and stop them from having income tax. So if I take that violation of the 16th Amendment in our government courts and I take that all the way to the end there to the Supreme Court, I'm going to lose. Why? Because the government is deciding on a government case. But let me tell you, we do have some control here, and if you have the opportunity, call your legislator, Molly Kelly and the representatives. Tell them you do not want to see an income tax in New Hampshire. Garbage. Speaking of which, while you're calling Molly Kelly, call her and tell her to vote against that seatbelt thing, too. Look, I'm a big kid enough to be able to decide whether or not I want to put a seatbelt on when I get in a car. The compliance in New Hampshire is 64%. People wear seatbelts in New Hampshire. 64% of people wear seatbelts in New Hampshire anyway, where it's not law. In Massachusetts, where it is a law, where they'll give you a ticket for $100, if you're not wearing one, it's 65% compliance. Do we really need a law for this? I'm Mark Edgington. This is the Keene Weekly News. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any comments, give me an email at mark@freekeene.com. Thank you. Shoot, it's the 13th Amendment.